Today I'm going to be sharing my updated drugstore makeup starter kit recommendations for beginners. So this is a collection of products I put together that I think would be a really great place to start if you're building your collection from scratch, or if you're not a beginner and you just want to maintain a more minimalist makeup collection. Now, beginner and minimalist does not have to mean boring. I did use all of these products today to create this fun fire look. So we're just gonna get straight into it. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name is Miranda. Welcome to my channel where we talk all things budget beauty. If that sounds interesting to you, then become the newest member of the Slashed Squad by hitting subscribe and the bell icon. Starting out with what I consider to be the best drugstore foundation around, this is the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear Liquid Foundation. Now there is also a powder version. I did a video on that. However, there's been mixed reviews depending on skin type, and I think this would work a little bit more universally. Not only is this great for beginners, but I think it's perfect as a minimalist makeup collection pick because it's a great year-round foundation. This is a buildable full coverage foundation that stays feeling extremely lightweight on the skin. A little goes a long way, and you get a really natural looking finish. It's not matte, it's not dewy, which is why I think it works across skin types. But the best part is this foundation performs and lasts all day without needing any other products. I pretty much stopped using primer when I discovered this foundation because I felt like it looked super smooth and even without it, and I rarely need to add any powder or setting spray even on hot days. I've found that this foundation lasts on me just as well and as long on a hot, sweaty summer day as a winter day. It's sweat proof, it's transfer proof, and it has SPF 25. I have combo skin that leans very dry in the winter and oily in the summer, so I feel like I've been able to test this in a range of conditions, and it always looks beautiful no matter what. It's breathable, it's comfortable, it's $14.99. Worth it. Now let's talk concealer. So if you watched my Battle of the Drugstore Concealers video, you might have an idea of what I'm about to recommend. This is the $6 e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. So that video was filmed before the hydrating version came out. There is a matte version, which is the original camo concealer. I do prefer the hydrating version. It's not dewy, but it is more of a natural finish, and I feel like it blends into my foundation a little better. Especially if you have fine lines around your eyes, the hydrating version is just gonna look a little bit more smooth overall, and the hydrating version does not oxidize. So the shade you see is the shade you get. This is a full coverage concealer that rivals those that are priced 3 times more. It's super creamy and easy to blend. In fact, it blends out so seamlessly that sometimes I'll just dot this where I need it, blend it out, and completely skip foundation on light makeup days. So again, great pick for a minimalist makeup collection too. I love this because there is very minimal creasing under my eyes, which is a huge problem just because of the shape of my eyes. I have really deep lines under both of them, and it's pretty impossible to keep anything from bunching, but this does a pretty decent job. Even after 7 hours, there's only the tiniest bit of wear in the deepest part of my creases. And the finish of the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer matches up with the L'Oreal Infallible foundation beautifully. There is actually a L'Oreal Infallible concealer, but I'm pretty sure it's like the same price as the foundation. So this is such a great budget find, and the quality so far exceeds the price tag. Now for brows. So for really new beginners, I would honestly recommend you find an eyeshadow shade in a palette that you have and try that out first, just so you can kind of get a feel for defining your brows and filling them in. But if you're looking for a pencil, this is one that I have been repurchasing over and over again, and I think it's just my new favorite. This is the L'Oreal Brow Stylist Definer. This is my favorite type of brow product, and while it may take some getting used to for beginners, I think that it is very beginner friendly in that the tip is extremely fine and it's hard to go overboard with. If you're a beginner, I would stay away from the pencils that either look like normal pencils because as they dull, they draw thicker lines, and even the ones with the more triangular tip because because I think that it's a little bit harder to keep a light hand with those. With a product like this, the tip of the pencil is so fine and skinny that you don't have to worry about sharpening. It's always going to give you small strokes that will look more natural when you're drawing them on. I also find that with a smaller pencil, it's easier to really get the edge you want when shaping out your brows, especially if you are drawing in areas that are sparse. Like my arches have barely any hair to them, so I always do have to sort of create a new outline, and it's always the cleanest when I'm using a skinny pencil like this. And then of course it does have a spoolie on the other end to help you blend the color through, make it look a little bit more soft. The L'Oreal Brow Stylist Definer is $8.99 at the drugstore. Definitely not the cheapest brow pencil at the drugstore, but I would consider it a dupe of my Benefit Precisely My Brow Pencil, which is my absolute favorite high-end, and this works just as well. Eyeshadow primer is always a must if you want your eyeshadow to apply vibrant and stay that way all day. Now, I do have a whole video dedicated to testing drugstore eyeshadow primers, but spoiler alert, this one came out on top. It is the Covergirl Lid Lockup Primer. This is $8.99, and I do recommend that you watch that eyeshadow primer video to see it in action, but my eyeshadow just blends on top of this really nicely. It stays in place, it doesn't crease, it doesn't fade. This just does what it's supposed to do. In the past, I've always recommended larger eyeshadow palettes for beginners because you kind of just get to start off with a ton of options. You get everything in one place, but I'm sort of editing that opinion now because I do feel like for beginners, seeing a ton of shades in one palette can be a little bit overwhelming. You don't necessarily know where to start, what's gonna match with what, and it can be frustrating. Plus, you might end up with a palette with shades that you just don't even use, and then it's kind of a waste. So my new drugstore eyeshadow recommendation for beginners is the Wet n Wild Color Icon palettes, either in the 5-pan versions, which is what I have here, or the 10-pan version. The 5-pan version that you see here only costs $2.99, and despite this only having 5 shades, you get enough to create multiple full looks out of. All of the shades blend into each other beautifully without any muddiness, and the colors all complement each other well. They did a great job designing and picking the shades in each of these palettes. And the price is right if you want to buy more than one. Pick and choose what colors to work into your collection. This one is Walking on Eggshells. It is the most neutral one they have, great for subtle everyday looks. And then this one that I'm wearing today is called Sundays, really beautiful, bright metallics, as well as a more orange terracotta lean. And then of course, if you want more options, you can upgrade to the $4.99 10-pan palette, still a great price for how many shades you're getting, especially compared to other options at the drugstore right now. It's the same great eyeshadow formula that just does what you want it to do. My looks always come out how I imagine them in my head because this eyeshadow is so easy to work with. So even as someone who's not a beginner at all, these are some of my favorite eyeshadows. Whether you're a beginner or not, this is the drugstore eyeliner that I recommend everybody to own. It's only $2.99. It's the Essence Extreme Lasting Eye Pencil. This is a waterproof eyeliner that is extremely long lasting. It is no budge, no smudge, but despite it being waterproof, it's also very creamy and easy to blend before it sets in place. So for that reason, not only is this my go-to for tightlining the waterline, but also to smoke out in the corners of my eyes. You do get a lot of playtime to blend this, smoke this, or even wing it if you want to. And once it sets, you can forget it. All right, picking a mascara for this video was actually very hard. There are so many great drugstore mascaras that I never ever recommend you buy a high-end one. There are just too many great options, and it's the product in your collection you should be replacing the most. With that said, there is a mascara that I recently tried a few videos ago that has very quickly become my absolute favorite, and so I was just like, this is the one I gotta talk about. This is the Revlon So Fierce Big Bad Lash Mascara. This blew my socks off. This mascara fans out my lashes for a fuller effect while also adding length, volume, and lift, which is so important for my short, straight lashes. You can apply one thin layer for just a soft, fluttery look, or you can build it up and almost get a false nice lash look. I really like dramatic lashes even when I'm not wearing a lot of other makeup. It just defines my eyes in a way that I like. And this gives me the lash look that I love. It's a little bit flared out, but the fanning and the separating is really what impressed me. What's also great about this mascara is that it doesn't smudge or smear throughout the day, and it doesn't flake. Only one bronzer came to mind when planning this video, and of course, it's the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. They did just redo the packaging. I still have my old one. Over the past few years, the brand has expanded the shade range of this bronzer, and I'm happy to report that there are actually dark options now. The reason why this is a great beginner pick is that it goes on pretty soft, but it is buildable if you want a more noticeable bronze. It also blends into the skin and other makeup seamlessly. Another thing that I like is because of all of the butters in the formula, hence the name, it looks very smooth on the skin. It doesn't look powdery or dry. I use the shade Deep, which is weird because this is not the deepest shade that they have, and certainly not very deep by my standards, but it is a great contour / warming up the face shade for me. It is only slightly warm, so I can use it both ways. And I think it just ends up looking really natural on the skin. The price of this bronzer ranges. I've seen it between $10 and $15 depending on where you're buying it. Moving on to blush, I do recommend powder blush over cream for beginners. I think it's a little bit easy to go overboard with cream. However, this formula kind of takes the best of both worlds. It's the NYX Sweet Cheeks Matte Creamy Powder Blush. So this is a powder blush, but the formula is so soft that it almost swipes on with the smoothness of a cream. I'm wearing the shade Citrine Rose today, and another thing to note about these blushes is that they are very pigmented, but they stay easy to blend. So if you start out with a fluffy brush and a lighter hand, you can get a soft wash of color, but you can build them up very quickly if you do want more of a statement blush. And it lasts all day without any fading or splotchiness. And this is only $7.50. I wanted to choose a highlighter for this drugstore makeup starter kit that wasn't too dramatic or sparkly, but that could still give you a really beautiful glow. So I ultimately landed on the $4.99 Essence Pure Nude Sunlighter. I have the shade Be My Sunlight, which is a great neutral. I think it'll work across several skin tones because it does have just a slight warmth to it. But basically, you can apply this sunlighter very lightly for just the most subtle, natural looking hint of a glow, or you could layer it up like I've done today to create a bit more of a noticeable beam. It's not sparkly or glittery, it just gives you glow. And I feel like that's hard to find in powder highlighters. And because it's not metallic or sparkly, I find that it looks a lot more smooth on the skin and it does not accentuate any texture. Finally, let's add some lipstick to your drugstore makeup starter kit. I have another $2.99 find from Wet n Wild. These are the Mega Last lipsticks in High Shine and Matte. Now I do have an entire video swatching all 26 shades in this lipstick line. I will link that in a card and down below. There is sure to be a few shades that you like, and the price is right, so buy more than one. But what I love about these is that they're so comfortable to wear in both finishes. They don't bleed or feather, they stay in place. And I love that they split this collection up into 2 finishes. Now with the matte side of the line, these are so pigmented, one swipe gives you full opaque color. And the matte finish is not a flat matte. I would call it more of a soft matte. There's a bit of radiance to it, but again, not drying at all, so it's not that traditional matte that you might know. Now with the High Shine finish, these are a little bit more glassy. They go on a bit more transparent and not opaque. You can build them up for a stronger color, but they're never going to reach opaque. And like the High Shine name suggests, these have a shiny, glossy finish. I am wearing one today in the shade Firefighting. The High Shine ones do not last as long as the matte ones because since they are glossy, they're not transfer proof. So as you eat or drink throughout the day, they're a little bit more prone to fading, although some of the brighter shades do leave a stain behind. Here's the finished look I created using using this drugstore makeup starter kit for beginners. And like I said, a beginner or minimalist makeup collection does not mean boring. I absolutely love the look we created today, especially for summer. It's so warm and bright. These products just all work really well together without needing too many extras. But of course, this can just be a starting point for you, and you can add more variety where you want it, like with eyeshadows or lipsticks. I'm very curious what other drugstore makeup you would recommend to beginners. Let us all know in the comments below. Today's shout out goes to Maureen. Thanks for being a member of the Slashed Squad. And join me over in this video next where I talk about a new product I've added to my skincare body care routine. I'll see you over there. Bye!